Alex Pereira a few days ago tweeted something very interesting. He said, "I always answered the UFC's calls, but if they want to play with me, we can do that. I've never spoken poorly of the UFC, but with what I've just heard, I am disheartened. I've already had thoughts of not fighting anymore, and after what was just relayed to me, this may be the start." Then he tried to do the whole "I got hacked" thing and had this to say as well.
Bom, pessoal, pô, recebi aqui um monte de mensagem aqui da galera falando aqui que viu mensagem do meu Twitter e, pô, eu nem sabia que tinha sido hackeado porque faz tempo que eu não posto nada, vocês veem aí, mas foi hackeado e eu vou estar resolvendo aqui e, pô, eu nem sei o que tá acontecendo aí, tem uma relação muito boa com a UFC sempre e, pô, as pessoas gostam de, sei lá, de ver o mal, então é isso, chama.
I'm gonna be 100% honest, like I always am, and some people might call me a casual and whatnot because of my honesty, but I was never buying it that he got hacked. That was way too specific of a so-called hack. Normally when someone gets hacked, the hacker basically posts all this crazy racial slurs, very dark, raunchy, sexual type things. In order for it to be known as a hack, it has to be way out of character for the person that's getting hacked. This was not a hack in the sense that, okay, he's speaking specifically on the UFC and what happens and what goes on behind the scenes. And yes, we know that when he came into the UFC, he was not on the side of being a spring chicken. He had 4 or 5 years max when he entered the UFC. And people are thinking, well, his career is coming to an end, especially after his last loss to Magomed Ankalaev. But again, that was just way too specific of a hack. Okay, like I said, normally hackers, they ask for money. They say racial, political, religious, controversial things. This was none of that. This was way too specific to be that. So why did he say that he got hacked? Probably because the UFC came to him and was like, say you got hacked, because we're not trying to look like the bad guys here. Say you got hacked and we'll give you the title shot. And something that was relayed to him was that, well, maybe if he doesn't accept the fight on International Fight Week, June 28th, that the UFC would go in a different direction and give the title fight to Yuri Prochazka. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. And now it came out today that he was, in fact, turning down the fight on June 28th against Magomed Ankalaev, the rematch. He rightfully so deserves the rematch, and the UFC is going to give it to him. However, he wants it in August. What's 2 more months? How many more months do you need to stuff all of 12 takedowns that was shot by Magomed Ankalaev? To me, he could step up and easily fight. However, if he didn't do everything he did last year, then he has a leg to stand on, which he does. He saved UFC 300. He saved UFC 303. He saved UFC 306. 307, excuse me. What more does this guy need to do to earn respect on his name? So I could see both sides of the coin here, especially for the UFC. Like, well, if you can't step up and fight International Fight Week, that is almost a month. It's basically a month and a half away. How can you basically say no to this opportunity? But at the same time, I get it. He did save the UFC, so the UFC should be cutting him some slack. But my problem is, why is Alex lying? That's my only problem with him. Why is he lying? General public thinks this man wasn't hacked. What more do we need? Why is the UFC stalling on announcing this fight? Why does Alex need to wait 2 more months? And if the UFC loses their biggest superstar since Conor McGregor, who hasn't fought since 2021, this will just continue the ship sinking that has been happening in the UFC for the better part of 3 years.